This is an exciting topic for us. I think, as some of you know, Anera, the Anera board created Anera Ventures LLC a couple of years ago to enable Anera to be able to attract impact investment to further our mandate. So we know we do good work, we know we have impact, and we know we're only meeting some of the needs. So how do we meet more of the need? And we increasingly feel that being able to attract and work with people who are interested in investing in impact is the way to do it. And so today we're going to talk to you about how we believe a development impact bond can help us to scale up our work. We're looking in a couple of different ways. Today we're going to talk about our early childhood development program, building more kindergartens in Palestine. As you'll hear from our education director, Suleiman Malaya, we're meeting a pretty good chunk of the need, but it's the tip of the iceberg. There's a whole lot more need, and how do we scale up our financing in order to do that? So that's what we're talking about today. We believe that this tool, this development impact bond, can be used across a lot of our funding. There's no direct ask today. This is a beginning of what we hope will be many conversations about what we're looking to do. And it really, again, is how do we get more support to meet Anera's mandate of improving lives in the Middle East. And thank you for being here. I'll turn it over to Brad Merchant, who is our impact investment consultant, has been working with us over the past year to develop a business model, an understanding, and a process to make Anera eligible for and attractive for impact investors. Brad, over to you. Thank you.
What are development impact bonds? So the simplest form of definition is they're pay-for-success programs in which investors provide pre-financing for social programs, and then donors pay back those investors their principal plus a return if these programs succeed in delivering social outcomes. So the question is, why use development impact bonds and not just traditional grants and donations? And the answer is really around scale and sustainability. So by using impact investors, programs are able to scale their funding and impact. It's additional, it's meant to be additional to donations and grants. And it's a way to scale up pool of funds that they can use for their programs. And what can happen with these is that investors, impact investors, can then reinvest in the same or other programs with the funds that are paid back. So it enables that program to access not only different pool of funds, but that those pool of funds can be recycled, which continues the scale of their programs. So ultimately, it's all around scale. And one of the main goals is really targeting this pool of funds towards social impact that will help to narrow the funding gap that's required to achieve scale in our programs, and at a global level, achieve scale required to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So there are international development institutions, bilateral donors, multilateral donors who are all looking at this as another tool in the toolbox to help scale the funding required to achieve impact goals. So overall, investors, impact investors, are the new entrant in this picture compared to traditional donations and grants. They provide the upfront funds, and donors enter the picture once a program proves it has achieved its impact targets, and they return that funding to investors, plus a financial return, which helps to create an incentive across parties to achieve impact. If we go to the next slide, please. So why does this make sense for Anera? Well, all of Anera's programs deliver impact. All of Anera's programs deliver impact that can be measured, and all of Anera's programs provide some form of economic benefit or cost savings to society that is valued by donors. And donors are now willing to pay more for programs, but they would make those payments after and only if and when the promised impact is met. So Anera can get access to more sustainable funding. It can scale its programs, and at the same time, we can be an innovative leader in the region, offering different funding solutions to help increase social impact. The name of the game is just scale and sustainability and trying to use all the tools that are available. meant to be complementary to our existing means of funding. And the attraction of this funding is that it presents just more sustainable funding for Anera's programs. The funds can be recycled into the programs, and they can allow those program teams to focus more on the long term with less of a need to continually focus on finding funding. I'm just going to discuss an example that is in the marketplace now. It's completed this impact bond and has results. So this is the Educate Girls NGO, and it's an impact bond that took place in India. And what Educate Girls was trying to do is they recognized the problem of a lot of girls being out of school despite being eligible, and the illiteracy problem in India. And the solution they had was focus on delivering an education program for all boys and girls, grades 3 to 5, and also work to improve enrollment of out-of-school girls into the program. And UBS was the impact investor that provided $270,000 up front. They paid 40% in the beginning, 60% a year later. And the program was simply just focused on enrollment and learning. Enrollment, it was door-to-door survey identifying those out-of-school girls, and then they would work to enroll those girls in the program. And learning, it was just delivering child-centric curriculum based on reading and math skills for all boys and girls in grades 3 to 5. What I've described here shouldn't sound too different from any other standard program in the international development space. And that's because it is very similar. We go to the next slide, please. Now, this is where things get a little bit different. So we enter into the picture here, impact metrics and outcome pairs. So at the beginning, when this program set out, the program and all participants agreed on the impact metrics to be measured and their respective targets for delivery. And so they focused on enrollment and learning. Enrollment, they set a target of getting 79% of the out-of-school girls enrolled from the survey into the program. And from a learning perspective, they focused on a standard ACER test, which focused on reading and math skills. And they targeted an aggregate improvement of just under 6,000 over a control group. So the important thing to note here is these aren't crazy or very difficult targets that they've set. They've set things that are very achievable, and that's the baseline in order for the impact investor UBS to get all their money back. What happened was they achieved 92% of eligible out-of-school girls enrollment, 116% above target. And the ACER learning score aggregate in total was just under 9,000, which was 160% above the target set out. So in the end, what this meant was Children's Investment Fund Foundation, who were the outcome payers, paid back UBS $270,000, plus for exceeding the targets, an additional $152,000. So after 3 years, the length of the program, and then once the metrics were verified, UBS got $422,000 back, which over a 3-year period is approximately a 15% rate of return. So 32% of the $152,000 additional payout was actually given to Educate Girls. So UBS at the end of the day was left with $373,000 that it can contribute to other programs for impact. So UBS achieved a targeted impact for a significant need and now has more money than they originally put in to contribute further impact. Now, granted, this money comes from outcome payers. It has to come from somewhere, but the incentives, when aligned in the view of the outcomes payers, a lot of foundations and donors creates better value for their dollar. The impact is guaranteed, and there are incentives to achieve better outcomes, not just a set of targets.
So let me just jump in to emphasize a couple of things here for everyone. On the targets, we don't know the details here, but we can imagine that there was some negotiation between the impact investors and the outcome payers. So you can imagine maybe the outcome payer saying, well, for me to pay, I really want a good outcome, and I want 80 or 85% or 90% target. And the impact investors might say, well, I want to make sure I get my funding back. So what if we do a 50 or 60%? But as Brad said, in the end, this number is not too tough a number to reach, and they surpassed it. They went 116% of the target. So that's a really important thing, and we see that again and again in impact bonds, where you see a problem and you think that as an NGO, as do-gooders, we look at a problem and say, we're going to eliminate it or we're going to cut it in half. And in fact, often you don't need to have an overly strenuous impact indicator in order to get the deal done. The other thing, just to point out, I mean, UBS, a gigantic bank, and they put $270,000 into this. That's petty cash for them. That's not a big investment, and they made considerable money back on it, and put some of the money, their profit. They gave us a donation to Educate Girls, and I believe after the success of this impact bond, Educate Girls actually got a lot of just regular donations from institutional donors. They greatly increased their donations for the work that they were doing. Thanks.
I joined Anera for its education program and with the focus on ECD. I think the fact we've led the field for the best part of a decade is remarkable. We're a small to medium-sized not-for-profit, but we've really punched above our weight in the past 10 years. Just so lovely to see that after a decade, we're creating facts on the ground and making a real difference to children's lives. So long before I joined, Anera had actually put together a national conference, organized a national conference in Palestine with the ministry and other key players. And it was very clear at the time there was not much of a preschool education sector. It was seen it wasn't seen as a priority, a national priority, and hence there were only 2 kindergartens. So very quickly, we realized that we needed to improve the quality of the existing preschools. A lot were not fit for the care and education for children. Most of the teachers, in fact, all but 3% of the teachers at the time had any training in early childhood development. So 97% of teachers at the time had no specialist training in early years. And really, we knew that if you really wanted to make a decent impact in early years, you need to look at the multiple environments within that are connected to the child. So the physical environment is really important. The temporal environment is critical. You know, the routine, the daily routine, the pedagogy, the teaching, the learning, the activities, that's the temporal environment. And the social environment is critical, engaging with the community, engaging with parents, the caretakers, etc. So we did that. But we also realized to really have a bit more of an impact than just focusing on clusters of preschools in Gaza and the West Bank, we needed to work on policy. So in that time, we're proud to have reached more than 200 kindergartens, renovated and equipped, and we even developed standards. As a small to medium-sized NGO, we also trained 1,000 teachers, 500 of whom have completed our full-time training course. And this is much more than any university in Palestine could do. We were doing 3 courses at a time in some instances, and we're training and mentoring teachers to improve the quality of education for children. And most importantly, I think, we brought Save the Children on board. We brought UNICEF on board, World Vision, Right to Play in 2016 and 2017, and many others. And we spearheaded the development of the National Curriculum Framework and the Teacher's Guide. And this is practical. I'm not too sure whether it's in every single kindergarten, but it's there. It's widely distributed and utilized, which is great. This week, we're just about to commence schools number 17, 18, and 19. So in the past, literally in the past 3 to 4 years, we've built 13 large, fully fledged KGs, 3 medium or small sized KG classes in remote areas because there's not the need for full KGs, and we're just about to commence 3 new ones. But the reality is that it's not enough. Our schools work at a number of levels. We're firstly enhancing access to preschool education, to preschool care, education and development for vulnerable children, often, in remote areas. So children are getting a proper start in life. We're also providing women mainly with employment opportunities, and we're creating centers of excellence. If the ministry does not have a groundswell of good quality, high quality preschools with teachers who are trained by us and supported by us, then the sector is not going to move. But the challenge is really to scale up. So if we're going to take a proper assessment, I would say we're probably in need of 1,000 to 1,500 brand new schools. We're engaging with the ministry and other ministries with the Palestinian Authority to work out models to scale up, to make sure that all Palestinian children under 5 are accessing 2 years of proper care, education, and development at a vital age.
Thank you, Suleiman. I invite anyone who hasn't seen these schools to please make a trip to Palestine and see them. I always say that they are aesthetically and pedagogically beautiful, and you really see that when you're there. The Terzi family are one of 3 donors who have now built multiple schools, at least 2 schools, and we're doing quite well, building 3, 4, 5 of these a year. But as we've said today, there's a need to build 30, 40, or 50 a year. And while we've got fantastic donors and a lot of them, we probably won't get to those kinds of numbers just doing it the traditional way. So I'd like to give you tell you about a conversation I had with one of these about this, and then open it up for questions and discussion. So with one of these, he said he wants to do many more schools, maybe 10 more schools. And I started talking about the development impact bond, and he said, well, no, I give my money to Anera. I'm a businessman, I have business, but I just give, I want to make a donation. And I said, okay, and we moved on. And a few minutes later, he said, so tell me again how this development impact bond would work exactly. And I explained it again. And he said, so I could get the money back that I invest in building the schools. Yes. So that means I could reinvest that money to build more schools. Yes. And that's the real key. And then he also said, and you know what? I have friends that should be investing in this program and they haven't, but with this model, they might. And so that's what we're really recognizing. I think there's great potential here to allow us to scale and meet more of the need. It's as simple as that.